Actually, this is a very comic picture, but it actually reflects what's happening on the ground on every government in the world. It doesn't tell very bad things actually, but it's a way to tell you a customer or the citizen actually for each and everything that he has in his life, even resting on a cushion, for example, will end up at the end of the day with a long cycle, okay, of somebody sucking some money out of his pocket and say that because we have to maintain your service or even actually enhance or introduce new service or something like that. But this is actually everywhere there's happening on the ground. I wanted to start with you with giving you, actually Stephen Brost this morning has put actually a lot of points or a lot of emphasis on the dilemma between the governance and the innovation, okay? Governments by nature, actually, they have a lot of governance and they really have to do this for particular reasons, for good reasons. We cannot debate on this. But actually, there is a price tag on the innovation. Sometimes you have to do things the way it is because actually you are scared of the change because the change sometimes makes a lot of socio-economic or political things on the customer side. But I wanted to start from a different perspective actually. Everybody knows that numbers are the most definitive aspects of our life. Your mobile number is yours actually. Your national ID is yours. I'm sorry? Something wrong? Okay. If there is a bit of a difference in that number, it goes to someone else. Your credit card is yours. If it changes, it's going to be somebody else. So you have to be careful in this. Numbers are very important, but they are actually the most decisive part of our lives, except that if you use them in isolation of other numbers, you're actually getting into disaster simply because actually if you tell somebody that we exported that much of a value and without saying whether actually exporting to what, actually exporting your raw materials or exporting to a neighborhood country that at a low price. I mean, there are so many things that you have to use in line with this. So data has to be in full context of other data so it can make sense. And it's all actually about understanding numbers, not just collecting numbers. Collecting numbers is a major problem that we're going to address in the next few minutes. But moreover, actually, is making sense of different numbers coming from different sources. If we all look at our operational systems in a bank, in a government sector, whatever, those systems are usually working in isolation because actually they are designed to do a particular job, and that job could be very important to the organization, and you cannot give it up. But what makes sense to the CEO or the head or the minister or the president or whoever actually the decision maker is to correlate, actually, to make sense of data from different sources, even if they are actually at the operational level, they are not connected to each other. For example, at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, where I came from, actually, we need to know actually the syntax of our foreign trade. What is it that we are exporting? Are we exporting raw materials? Are we exporting something that has an add value? Are we exporting something with ad hocs or there is a sustainability there? All these kind of patterns actually, what are the add values in what we do and what is it that we are importing? Are we importing exactly the same thing that we are exporting? So there are some problems in there. So these kind of things, you cannot get it unless you have an access to the data in the nitty-gritty detailed level. And as Stephen this morning said, that you have to deal with data as a product that has a price tag that you have to maintain and you have to keep using, and it has its own life cycle. Actually, we're starting from very simple things to extremely complicated things. The value of the availability of the data actually has to do very much with the time. This is extremely important. If I wanted to know actually during, for example, there is a season in Europe that for example, of the snow and there are no grapes enough in Europe, for example. Okay, so this is something that I need to know today. I don't want to know it from a statistical organization 3 months after that. It's of no value to me. I need to know it today, whereby I can redirect ships or actually do what you call it, agreements. And instead of actually having this at the trader himself, at the trader level, I want to make it as a national level. Maybe I put some incentives on this. Maybe I had to, encourage a specific shipping lines and so on. So the value of the decision gets lesser with the time, okay? And this is something that we all have to do, keep in mind. As a Minister of Trade and Industry, I don't want to tell you actually what we are supposed to do, but I wanted to tell you one thing. We have started this process in 2004. And this is a very good example I always wanted to put here and shed some lights on it. Like any other country in the world, they have their own national organization that produces the statistical numbers or statistical figures to everybody. And as a minister, for example, I'm an advisor to the Minister of Trade and Industry, and as a minister, he wants to take a decision on a particular area, okay? He needs to get some guidance. He needs to get some detailed data sometimes, some aggregate data sometimes that approves his point. So he turns around to his own people, give me the figures. What is it we're doing with Russia? What is it we're doing with the United States? And this is a very shocking figure that you can see from two particular national sources of data, the Central Bank of Egypt and the CAPMAS, which is the official organization that produces numbers to everybody. One problem is they produce numbers maybe 3 months later, but this is not only the problem. Even, are these data actually valid? Can we take decisions? Okay, even if they are aggregate? Look at it here, actually. If you look at how much we exported in 2003 to the United States, one figure is saying 3.3 billion US dollar. Another source is saying $500 million. And the reality actually, or I have to say reality with all due respect, because actually, I mean, I have that much 6 times difference between two sources in the same country, okay? I have to count on my foreigner party. So the US says it's 1.14 billion, something funny. And that's something funny, no decision maker will ever look at any number at the national level. And that's the whole idea. We built up the system, and through a whole life cycle, and the difference between the source and foreign parties actually, or partners, is very minimal, in the range of 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, whatever %, which is very much tolerable and very much acceptable in the foreign trade, which means that there is a legitimate process behind, there is a success story behind it. What's the story actually? What do we want to do? We wanted to avail data to the business community alike with the government. Not only that, because actually governments, they do not export or import. At the end of the day, it's the private sector. So they have to see the same data. They have to look at it, actually the same figure, maybe from different angles, maybe companies looking at it from the shipping perspective and tonnage value, maybe somebody's looking at it from the particular markets that we are actually working on. Some of them, they're working from the commodity. However, they have to look at the very source. And more importantly is we want to reflect what is happening on the ground. We don't want to make fabricated numbers. We don't want to make massaged number. We don't want to make second guess of the number. Okay, we wanted to make a reflection of the real numbers that is happening on the ground, whereby we can easily re-engineer things. We can easily see if we have capacity build or so on. These are actually the objectives that we had. Looked at it, looked at the environment. What is it we have? We have islands. We have so many data. Sometimes we feel like we don't have a data, or we have so much data. Which one is right, actually? Maybe you have the same data, but actually in different hands, and they are second-hand data. What I mean by second-hand data is not the very source of the data. Somebody read it and reproduced it. You don't know what did he do with the data actually to produce it to others. He took an average, he took a standard deviation, whatever, and he produces. And if you try to compare them, actually, again, you adding more troubles to the data itself. So the best way is actually to unify the data itself to make sure that the very source of the data is a single process, and then actually start producing to everybody else up to his own demand. I'm sorry, that kind of problem may not be in a private sector, but for the government, yes, it's very valid, because actually most of the cases that you work in Ireland. So these are different attributes of the data available at that time. You have a mistrust, you have people don't like it. Sometimes you have the data today, and tomorrow, if you want to ask the same question to the same person, you get a different figure, because actually there is no process behind it. The only process behind it was actually is to gather, to massage, to decorate, and to put it in a presentation. But actually there is no continuity actually with the source. It is not the way to present data, the way actually the relation between the data that you have in your hand is actually related to what is happening on the ground. And this is a very key issue. Okay, at the government, again, there are official organizations responsible for this, and there are actually lack of systems on the ground. There are business community, they don't trust. So you need to build trust with the business community. Those are all challenges that we have in terms of when we got to related to this one. So what did we do actually? We just went in parallel tracks, and very simply, we started to identify and qualify the data source. Even sometimes we don't have the operational systems. We developed the operational system. We made it part of the business process to make sure there is a continuity. Otherwise, it's not just a scoring card that you fill in data and you read it at the end of the day. Nobody cares about it except if they wanted to use it to rekey the data. But if you make it as a part of the business process, you maintain the continuity, exactly like in a bank or telco company or something like that. And then we started actually talking to the business community. Hey, we have numbers. No, we don't trust you. Please, come and try it. Come and look at it. Why not? Actually, you're not gonna be hurt. Actually, look at it. And especially, you're a trader, you're an exporter. How about showing you your own data? Okay, your own data. So we started actually approaching large exporters and importers with their own data. And it took us some time to build the confidence with them, until one of them, they said that the only difference between your source and my source is the rate of change of the foreign currency change that you put there. You put it on a daily basis, I get an average. That's the only difference between you and me, which is by itself is a success for us. In the parallel track of this one, we don't want to produce numbers, and the central authority that produces numbers are playing their own symphony. So we had an agreement with them to assess our data, make sure that we learn from them, and we rebuilt actually a lot of things, we re-engineered a lot of things, and they said, we signed an agreement that it will be the official source, which means that you are narrowing down the differences between the sources and in line with the very source that you have that actually produces data. This is, again, it is not always the case with private sector, but in the government sector, you will see this quite a lot, okay? And we started to build up, after offering the data freely to business community, we started to develop service level agreements with them, and we made sure that there is a price tag on this. So we started making revenue out of it. We made sure that the whole loop is closed. Even our rep offices in commercial attaché everywhere in the world, they use the same data set, but different views based on their market and so on. Okay? Again, like everybody today showed his architecture. Of course, certainly there is an architecture somewhere, but I don't have to get into those details. But identify the data sources, build up the data warehouse, business analytics, and after that, we started to build up the performance indicators. We started to build up KPIs. We started to build up dashboards and everything. Okay, again, this is a quick view of it. This is the data sources, central repository, and we have the e-data at the end of the day. And not only this, actually, we built a specific units that will approach the business community, calling them for actually giving them the data, contacting them, listening to them. Even actually in a government, if you wanted to have a data, you go and see somebody, sit with him, he designs your report, and he gave it to you, actually not a PDF, but he gave it to you in Excel format, and so on. And people are using it, and we have built up, again, the service level agreement, or SLAs, with more than 100 authorities, okay? Every one of them has got a bunch of data that is actually suits or fits his own requirements. What is after that? The output. We have custom tailored reports. We have BI analytical reports. We have OLAP, data mining, portals and dashboards. Without getting into those actually details, I'm sure you all know about it, but this is what we have achieved so far. Outcome for us is something quite important, actually. The picture, if you look at it actually at that time and today, quite different, actually. We have the turnaround time for generating any report is only a few seconds, not actually a few months or something like that. And it doesn't go through any process except to drag and drop the fields that you need to do it. We have a lot of actually analytics with businessmen to predict commodities, to predict markets, to being a single point for the foreign trade data for the whole country. Okay, we have done this, and we have an endless kind of reports. We have also every time the minister that I work with actually goes somewhere or gets into an agreement or something like that, there's an automated process to generate reports specific about this country, about those kind of exporters, what are the top exporters. Sometimes he wants to go to Russia, and he wants to see businessmen, and he tells somebody, well, who are the top exporters to Russia? What are you exporting? What are you importing from Russia? In a click of a button, he knows who and where is he. And even we have all the demographics there, what they call detail, phone number, contacts, and everything about this. We've also worked in different patterns. Somebody wanted to build a factory somewhere, actually, whereby he wanted to get the best port where he can export fresh produce to Europe, for example, and he wants to make a hydration facility. Should he go to Alexandria, for example? Should he go to Sokhna, Red Sea, whatever? Or where should he should go? So a pattern of 10 years of exports, for example, with all nitty-gritty details, if we have to, or an aggregate data, whatever, seasonalities, name it, it's in his hand in a few seconds, and he can decide actually based on this. Okay, and he would not have any problem with the other sources because actually we govern them, because actually we give them the data. We have become the official source for the World Bank for the doing business report assessment, because actually they come and take the data out of our KPI systems without actually any intervention, because actually we have designed it in a way that suits the requirement. That's very much of example. Another good example is that last one I wanted to quote is that we have started, for example, in the ministry a specific unit to promote the exports to Russia, Kazakhstan, and China. 3 different business units in there, because actually we found a very good potential there actually based on this data. Before, it used to be just speculation, guessing, okay? Today, we have facts, and we know who's actually exporting and importing. We also analyze the pattern of the anti-dump of if somebody's bringing something actually over the quota, there are patterns in the operation itself. If somebody trying to issue a certificate of origin, for example, for a transaction that did not exist. So these are different patterns that's already there, but they are endless, and I don't want you to get bored out of it. That's, I think, in a nutshell, we succeeded in doing this. And I think it's worth mentioning with you that we had some critical success factors that made us successful, because there has been a commitment from the management, from the government. If there's no commitment, there's no continuity, forget it, don't waste your time, don't waste any penny, okay? So you should have the commitment beforehand. And it's a business-driven project, because we learned a lot from business. We had business actually working very close to us in each and every step, not government officials only, but actually business, which was a very key issue, because we built up the system around their demands, not around the government demand. Government demands actually very little compared to what business is asking for. Getting the data from the main source. Don't get second-hand data and start play around with it. Don't get data from someone. Make sure that you get data from the very source. It's a very key issue. There's no trade-off in this, okay? Of course, use the right technology, and thanks to Teradata, simply because Teradata for us, it did a lot of work to us, simply because they gave us a machine that we never worried about skill set, we never worried about staging, we never worried about anything. Anything that we can do, we used to do it in even logical way, not to have develop a kind of physical marks and these kind of things. We've done a lot of logical marks, which was very helpful to us. Okay, and I can show you a quick mark in here actually, but let me just finish this thing. Importantly is we work it in phases actually. We did not do it, actually blow it up in a few months and so on, and we have everything. No, it's a learning tool for us. So it took us some time to do this, getting feedback from the business, okay? And again, when we try to do this, let's keep in mind that change is the only constant in our life cycle. It's the only constant, because actually it keeps changing every day. Everything is changing, okay? We are monitoring the data on a daily basis. If you wanted to know actually what is being exported from this particular port by this exporter, at that time, it's only maybe an hour back again, because actually we just update the data almost with almost an hour from the operational system with the time lag, okay? And we address all levels of management. We address the seniors. We address actually the traders themselves. They can get their own transaction. They can get their own data. More importantly is we are working on a portal right now whereby they will log in and get their own transactions. We have small systems for them. They can track their own consignments, but today we are working in a few months, in 2-3 months time, they will be able to track their own shipment, get their own historic data, analyze it, and compare it to others. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and appreciate your, if you have any question. There is a sample, if you want to look at it, of the kind of reports that is actually produced to everybody. It has, I mean, aggregate, detailed, whatever. It's in here actually if you want to show it, but it's okay. Thank you.